Let's get some analysis on the story now with Barbara Leaf, former Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs in the Biden administration. Very good to have you with us. First of all, I want to start with what Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister told us, said to the BBC. He said that the U.S. joining Israel in strikes would cause, quote, hell for the entire region. He called it a quagmire. Do you agree with that assessment?
Well, Sui, a lot of this is the sort of the normal kind of language you would expect to hear from Tehran. And I think what's striking right now is there's almost a pleading sense in the messaging from the foreign minister. He's talking directly to the U.S. leadership, to President Trump. And of course, what is just as critical is what is going on in the private channels. So yes, there is risk there. That's what he's trying to underline.
We have heard a lot of back and forth about those private channels. The Iranians saying they have not reached out to the White House. They don't want to come to the White House. At the same time, hearing that Steve Witkoff has been speaking with the Iranian foreign minister. Tell us more about how that works.
Well, they have a direct channel now. That was something that was elusive during the Biden years, and that was a position in direct talks that the Iranians started out with the Trump administration. That shifted rather rapidly. I have no doubt that in this sense of in this atmosphere of crisis, they have dropped those formalities, and that Irakchi is talking directly to Steve Witkoff.
We saw our partners here, CBS News, reporting that Donald Trump sees disabling Fordow as necessary. Do you think that is true?
It's only one part of the puzzle. And the problem is there is no one and done, as the U.S. military would say, end to this conflict, or rather, if the conflict is only about the destruction of the nuclear program. The nuclear program, the architecture, the infrastructure has been dispersed over years and buried. But yes, Fordow is a critical piece of it. It's just not likely to end with just that.
So how would that continue? Say the U.S. were to strike Fordow. You're saying that nuclear enrichment would be continued by the Iranians.
So, look, in past episodes where the Israelis have taken out, for instance, the Osirak reactor, the Iraqi reactor in 1981, the Iraqis redoubled their efforts to recover a program, to build a program. The Iranians, we're in uncharted territory now because of the scope and the scale of the campaign, and also the fact that Israeli leaders, and you heard the defense minister himself put it this way, are really making no pretense. They are taking the gloves off. They're making no pretense that the campaign stops with military and nuclear program strikes, rather that they would be very happy to see the regime capsized, disabled, regime change, in other words. So this is the risk that a U.S. involvement brings for the U.S. There is, of course, a risk of Iranian attacks on U.S. personnel. I personally rate that as lower than in the past, simply because they have to weigh whether they want a two-front war at this point. But
Okay.
it's easy to get into a conflict. It's much harder to get out, as we have learned many times.
As you served in the Biden administration, I want to ask, when President Biden came into office, he initially said he wanted to pursue follow-up negotiations to rein Iran in. Why did that not materialize?
I'm not certain that the Iranians really had the political will to negotiate seriously. And indeed, as I said, they made it exceptionally difficult to do so, with an insistence on only doing this indirectly and making outsized demands. Look, and there were a lot of other things on the president's plate throughout those 4 years: the withdrawal from Afghanistan, the Russia's assault on Ukraine, and then, of course, October 7th.
Just to follow up on that, the Trump administration would say it's because President Biden didn't put enough pressure on the Iranians to come to the table.
Look, I think the Biden administration did put pressure on the Iranians. President Trump put a lot of pressure on Iran in his first term. And of course, we had an explosive reaction from the Iranians in the summer of 2019, which ended with an attack, a direct attack on Saudi Arabia, and a lot of harassment and harassment of Gulf shipping and so forth. So you've got to have the pressure is fine, but you've got to have a sort of endpoint where you're going. And
Right.
there wasn't really a diplomatic strategy attached to that pressure the first time around. So I'm frankly glad to hear that the president is going to expand the time frame here, and it sounds like he is going to redouble diplomatic efforts, and that's a good thing.
Okay, we'll have to leave it there. Barbara Leaf, thank you so much for joining us on our program.